Okay, thank you. Okay, welcome back everyone. So now we will continue with our agenda, and we'll pass back to Rob, and he's now going to talk to 8.6, which is the 2023 Climate Action Grants Impact and Accountability Reporting. Over to you, Rob.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just before I dive into this, I'd just like to wrap up that great comment from Mr. Sutton before about adaptation questions that might come up as part of community education. And I guess I'd just say that we'll work closely with the strategy team and the Takatai Kapiti team, around what are safe things to say about those questions, so we can also make the most of the education opportunities that come up from people's interest. So thank you. It's a great question and one that needs more careful thought. Awesome. So hey, diving into our climate action grants, just a bit of reporting back on funding recipients from the 23-24 funding round. So Marnie Park Restoration Group have set up trapping lines and weeding and planting work in North Waikanae. A bit of a quote from them there, that this project has developed positive connections and relationships with the local community and between community and council as well. So that's sort of on top of the obvious biodiversity benefits of the work they're doing. They're bringing people together, and there's lots of other great outcomes that come out of that. Raumati Technology Centre, so with a range of different education initiatives that they're running there, with 1,000 Year 7-8 students going through every year, and in a community education space that the adults can go to as well. Kakariki Earth, so they had a biochar project, and Robbie Stillwell, who was presented from the waste minimisation team before, talked a little bit about biochar. So this particular project looked at using biochar products, or designing biochar products that can be used within the building envelope to reduce the environmental footprint of buildings. And there's a lot of interest coming out of that project from wider sort of sustainable building industry. And I note that the Wainanga and Otaki are hosting EBAN's, Earth Building Association of New Zealand, conference in November next year. So that's which is sort of hundreds of people from around the country coming together to explore these opportunities. Paikakariki Orchard and Gardens have set up a bit of a portable biochar. So that's a community-based. You can see the kiln there that goes on the back of the truck. So that you can hire that. That's you can use that for garden offcuts or other sources of clean biomass and turn that into a useful end product. But these biochar projects have also sparked a range of conversations across the community, with various sort of commercial collaboration opportunities for reducing building waste and turning that into a useful end product as well. Raumati Bike Bus, again, up and running with 2 established routes and over 100 supervised student rides so far over the last term or two. Natural Build Otaki ran a workshop in Otaki in Easter last year, with a dozen participants learning about natural building techniques and methods. Waikanae Estuary Care Group have replaced their shade house tables, and don't they look great? Men's Shed replaced the air compressor. So if we want to talk about circular economy initiatives, then I think the Men's Shed are a good example of a local group that can help to support that work. So they work with a wide range of community providers to build new and repair existing items, and they need to have the tools to do so. So that's their new air compressor. Organic Wealth, again, Robbie mentioned Organic Wealth before, but so this is expanding their organic food waste collection services across Kapiti, working with a range of businesses as well as households. And then Kapiti Coast Biodiversity Project, who have got a plan to restore biodiversity, particularly podocarps across lowland areas in Kapiti. So at the moment they're in the seed collection and nursery stage, with progressive planting over the next couple of winters. And the only slide that's missing there is one from the Shed Project in Kapiti, who I've been working with closely, but haven't got a good photo to represent their work at hand. So look, just to sum all that up, firstly, a huge thank you to this committee for supporting the development of the Climate Action Grant Fund and as you can see, enabling a number of successful project outcomes. And I do note that this year marks the end of Better Off funding. So, there's no more central government funding to continue this grants, but if there are any opportunities to offer similar grants in the future from any other funding sources, then in my humble opinion, that would be money well spent. So that's it for that section, and welcome any questions or comments.
Thank you very much, Robbie. So, Rob, Mr. Judge.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks for that roundup. And I would note that I was very proud to support the grants to all of those initiatives. And I particularly see the breadth of value that we get to them in the things that they're doing and the connections into the community and supporting the good works and all of the co-benefits of that come with it. No question about that. But my question is, do you have an estimate of emissions avoided over the life of the projects?
Through you, Madam Chair. Great question. Thank you, Councillor. Not at hand. But if I dive into project reports, I'd be able to compile a summary. It wouldn't be comprehensive because not everyone's supplied that information, but a lot of people have. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll move on to Mr. Sutton now.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a very quick question. Are you able to provide the reports to us? I'm particularly interested in numbers 7 and 10. I'd like to review those if at all possible.
Through you, Madam Chair. Yeah, sure, that's no problem. Could you, just I haven't got your agenda in front of me, report 7 and 10, which of those groups?
Matty Technology Centre and the Kapiti Cycle Action.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Coe.
Yep, thank you. Look, I have a thing about comms. What are we doing to spread the word about this fantastic work that's happening? To me, there's a whole lot of good stories in there that need to get told to the public. And, it's a way of getting further community support perhaps for some of these initiatives. Because, again, we've got people out there in the community saying, why is council giving away money when we can't afford to pay rates? I think just to see the benefit of that to the wider community is, it's what we need to get that message out there to get the community support. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Councillor Coe. Great question. And we've been, as you probably observed, we've got quite a lot of projects on the go and in the planning phases, and working pretty closely with our comms team around how we get the word out around that, and that definitely includes spreading the good work of Climate Action Grant funding. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coe. So we'll now move to Mr. Black.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Look, thank you, team. Look, I just say these projects are just fantastic, by the way. Following on Liz's question as well, return on investment. If it'd be really good to actually understand the money's gone into certain projects, you've got the outcomes there, but if you project that, let's say 5-10 years in the future, given the constant growth, can we quantify the return on investment from initial seed capital? Either being emissions reduction, riparian, restoration, and all the other benefits that we are actually having on the wider scope of our environment, because that would really help us actually sell that story to the wider community.
Through you, Madam Chair. That's a really great point, and some aspects of projects are easy to mention. There was a question before about carbon emissions, so those are tangible things we can quantify and report on. Some of the social impact things are a little bit harder to measure, but broadly we can, I guess, by forming close working relationships with all of these groups, we have an opportunity to keep in touch and to continue to work with them. And there could well be, maybe down the track we could reach out to people who have been involved in these projects, and we could help to sort of gauge the various ripple effects that this funding has had, that through these projects, so we could help to bring a clearer answer to that question, even though it might be largely qualitative rather than based on hard data.
That's right. I mean, even if it starts with that, if you get these groups to actually understand, what is the ripple effect, what is the best bang for buck, because we can't make good decisions unless we monitor inputs and outputs, and we know the science isn't quite there, but this is the start of a journey to actually start to quantify. How do we pose the question there? Well, how can I measure this effect? And then we can actually say, actually, this is a really good benefit because the $100,000 we spent here is actually turned into $3 million down here. So why wouldn't you? Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Councillor Hanford, I think you're online with a question or two.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Provanov, and thank you, Rob, and the rest of the team for rolling out this project and it being really successful. As Councillor Coe talked to, like, the impact of these projects is just amazing. I have two questions. The first one being, both rounds were oversubscribed, right? So, Rob, in your view, like, would it be helpful when we're looking at hopefully allocating funding to this initiative again in the future, that maybe more money might be required than what was initially allocated for these two rounds?
Through you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Councillor Hanford. Great question. And I think, look, my comment would be, as much money as we can afford would be money well spent. It enables great outcomes. We're working with community groups that, while some of that work is paid, that there's a lot of voluntary work going into these projects. It would probably cost council a lot more if we were to undertake all this work ourselves. So I think from my point of view, the more money we could afford to support and enable community groups in this way, it lends itself to a really good return on investment. That said, it would depend a little bit on our priorities, and it comes back to the climate strategy too, because a lot of this work isn't necessarily leaning into the biggest opportunities for emissions reduction which are within our district, which are more around transport. So, I think there'd be a balance between what's the work that council needs to lead really in terms of reducing emissions through transport and industry and other means, and then what's all the other great work that we can work with our community partners to support, and the climate strategy could help to connect and articulate that. But short answer would be, the more money we can offer through funds like this in the future, I think it's great return on investment.
Okay, thank you, Rob. I just had one other question. I really appreciated the different events that brought together the various climate action grants recipients, both from the first round and the second. And I think the people who received the funding also really enjoyed the opportunity to connect and kind of create or strengthen connections across their various different actions in the climate space. So I guess I'm just wondering, like, how are we going to kind of keep that forum alive, or are we going to keep that forum alive? And if so, how do you think it sort of intersects with our district-wide emissions reduction work in the way that we could sort of help enfranchise that group to support us in delivering a district-wide emissions reduction target of net zero by 2040?
Through you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Councillor Hanford. Look, again, that's a great question, and everyone loves a good party, right? And lots of comments from those climate action grant recipients that the value in bringing people together to network and explore opportunities for collaboration and synergy across projects. That's really the mahi that parties enable. So more than happy to sort of continue to organise annual forums like that. Depending on how the climate think tank evolves, there may be a bit of opportunity for crossover or synergy there as well. But I think, having forums to continue to bring people together for networking and collaborations, both fun and a bit of a win-win for enabling further outcomes too.
Yep, awesome. Okay, thanks, Rob. That sounds great. Councillor Pavanov, that's all from me.
Thank you, Councillor Hanford. So now we'll move on to Councillor Halliday.
Yep, me again. And sorry, bit of a stuck record thing again. Look, get the name. Don't worry, Climate Action Grant. But frankly, all those projects in there were either environmental or sustainability. And again, just coming back to the wording and what we're getting across, right? I don't want to diminish the fact that we are taking climate action. But again, from a messaging perspective, if we've got people in the community that are pushing back on this sort of space, calling the environmental and sustainability type grant approach could be a way to approach the naming of this, if there's a grant going into the future around this sort of thing. Just flagging that as something for consideration.
Through you, Madam Chair. Thank you. Councillor Halliday.
Thank you, Councillor Halliday. So now we move on to Councillor Coe.
Yeah, sorry, I know I've already had one crack at it, but it just suddenly came to mind in terms of helping some of these projects find other funding. There is funding out there in this space in the general community, and I always have always thought that council could perhaps be a bit more proactive in terms of helping some of our local groups latch into funding. When we went to the LGNZ conference, there was, I talked to the lady from Strategic Grants that runs a system whereby, and apparently someone from council was talking to them about buying that system. So it enables you to, if you have a subscription, and you can buy bulk subscriptions, right? So we can, if council was to buy a bulk subscription, we can then allow certain organisations to have a part of that as a subscriber, and you can tap in and put in certain criteria and look at all the different options that are available for funding out there from other organisations. Seems to me that that's something that we could, at very little cost, provide as a way of funding some of these projects rather than using council money, just helping people tap into what else is out there. Because a lot of these small groups don't have the nous or the experience or the capability to know where to go to find alternative sources of funding. So it's a way of enabling these things to happen without putting pressure on our ratepayers to fund them. I'm not sure whether Brendan, you're aware of that system, Strategic Grants, but it's a really powerful system. Seems to be would be useful across a whole range of stuff that council does.
Thank you, Councillor Coe. I think Monique has some comments to make.
Kia ora. As the manager for climate action and connected communities, we're also having a lot of those conversations about the community funds and I guess the capability to apply for all these funds and source them. So yes, we've been looking at strategic grants as an option. We're investigating it at the moment. Okay. Yep. So will you make a decision? Yes. So yes, we're Emma's having a look at it. So yeah, we've had some conversations. Okay. Good.
So thank you, everyone, for your contributions. I have a couple of thoughts. So I know that a bit more information was asked about a couple of the projects, and I suppose having been on a community board previously, and when applications are granted, there's always a feedback report that's provided to the community board and is publicly available. I'm just wondering whether these reports are publicly available and could be put somewhere so people can actually see, I suppose, how this money has actually been utilised. I see that some are ongoing as well, and I think also too, and I suppose, whether there's and maybe when the people were asked to provide these reports, that wasn't necessarily specified, but I know that we have another set of feedback that's going to come next year, and I'd like to see that those reports are publicly made available, but is it possible to have these ones made publicly available as well?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Great question. I could look into that. I think it's important that what we do across our various grants is consistent, so I can have a conversation around how that looks across our other grants and how that would look for this one. As you say, that's not something that we mention to funding recipients up front, so there might be a conversation to have with each of them there. Reports have also been in different formats this year. We've streamlined all of that for this funding round. Short answer, I could look into it.
Yeah, thank you. And I think, I suppose, I haven't seen what the format of the questions are or the layout of the form is, but I think, maybe picking up about, I suppose, the return on investment, and also to, how much it's actually reducing our carbon footprint as well, which I think are, really important things, and, to actually, for us to be aware of. And I know that this funding round is actually now ended, but further down the line, there may be other opportunities. And so this could be provided as a, I suppose, a good body of information to go forward, and how we actually allocate and think about how we're going to provide or allocate that any potential funding going further forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. So we have no more questions or comments. So I'll now move to page 42, where we have our two recommendations. That the Climate Environment Committee note this report, that the Climate Environment Committee continue to explore any funding opportunities that may enable the climate action grants to be offered in the future. So can I have a second for that, please, Mr. Judge, this time? All those in favour? All those against? The motion is passed. Thank you very much, Rob and team, for all this work that has been going on for the last year and what has gone on for this year. And as you can see by the questions, we are really interested to know what has panned out as a result of these this funding that's been allocated. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you all very much. I'm aware we've gone quite over time, but thank you very much for your interest, support and questions. Look forward to following up.
And thank you very much, Jamie, as well, for your support here. Right, so now we're going to move on to item 8.7. So I'd like to, this is an update on the Kapiti Coast Trails Trust. So I'd like to invite Kat Wild to come up and speak to it, advisor recreational tracks and trails, and Janice Hill, who's been involved in this as well, external speaker. Thank you. Oh, so, and Bruce Henderson's going to come up as well. He's chair of the CWB and member of the trust, and I think a few more explanations will be given about the trust as it is. Thank you. So, who's going to? Yes, Kat. Thank you.
Oh, kia ora koutou, ko Kat Wild Tukunga. For those who don't know me, I'm the advisor for recreational tracks and trails in the Parks and Open Space team. I'm really just here to introduce Janice and Bruce as some of the founding trust members, as well as Rob. Just to kind of talk, my part is really just to remind everyone that this has come out of the asset management plan for recreational tracks and trails that was approved by council last November. Janice actually wrote it, so it's quite even better that she's here. And within that, it talked about the creation of the Kapiti Coast Trails Trust, which I'll now pass on to Janice to talk about. So that's easy. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou. It's lovely to be here again, and so acknowledge everyone that I know. There's lots of familiar faces, which is great to be here today to give you this update. So without further ado, and thank you, Kat, the Kapiti Coast Trails Trust has been formed with 6 initial founding trustees. We are literally waiting for it to pop up on the Incorporated Society website. It's overdue by one day. Come on, people. So that is imminent. And the next step, our lawyer is prepped to apply for charitable status. So as soon as we get that, we'll be off to Kiwi. As soon as we get our Incorporated Society certification, we'll be off to Kiwi Bank to open a bank account. So it is in progress. So hallelujah. So the trustees, we have 6 initial founding trustees. So myself, Bruce Henderson and Rob Cofer, plus we have recruited Christopher Russell as our chair, Fergus Brown and Steve Lewis as well as our 6 initial trustees. Our deed allows for up to 8, I believe. Yeah. So the purpose of the trust, very quickly, is trails, trees, traps, tails, and tourism. So obviously the trails goes without saying, I suppose, but the trails it's not just about the physical track. The trail is the access and the mechanism by which all the other benefits can be delivered. The trees, the forest, allowing that connection for people to the environment and to be able to explore our fantastic Kapiti Coast, and also protect and preserve and enhance the forests that we have is particularly important to us all. Trapping is a big part of that. So a lot of these areas are very silent forests, very sadly silent forests. We unfortunately have, and very interesting to sit in on the last discussion as well, as you're aware, a big problem with predators, pest controls. Kapiti Coast unfortunately also has ferrets, which Wellington does not. And as Kiwi are moving forward, Capital Kiwi are doing a fantastic job and have wild kiwi as far north as Broadmeadows. We have a real job to do and stop the ferrets going south. Tails is really, and I mean TALES here. So we have a lot of stories to tell, as you know, but there's a lot of history that the trails can take people to, explore. A lot of history and a lot of heritage that we actually have to explore on, which gives a huge meaning and connection to the whenua, and tourism. People are already coming to the Kapiti Coast for our trail environment. This work that we are looking to undertake in terms of development of that will only expand that, and we believe quite substantially. So that's a brief introduction and update on the trust. So if I could, I'm happy to take any questions on that, and Bruce is here to help me. Otherwise, I'd like to give you an update on one project that we're working on. Great.
So actually I have a question.
Yes.
So great initiative, great to see that this is happening, because I know it means that there's going to be a lot, or potentially a lot more funding that's going to come into the space from external sources, because of the limitations to our council funding system. So I suppose once this trust is set up, I take it there's going to be some type of strategic plan or overall plan that actually identifies what the key priorities are. I don't know whether it's going to mark out maps, and also to how that ties in with when we have developments going on here, how that ties in with our strategic, or KCDC's strategic decision making on being able to put in new routes through those developments. Big few questions there.
Yes, exactly. The first one, do we have a strategic plan? Yes, we have an initial plan on a page, if you like. The initial plan for development is as per the asset management plan, which is that we have 3 levels of trails, effectively. We have the coastal trail, which is down on the flat, which is largely already, so I'm doing this meaning north-south with my hands. So that coastal trail is largely complete. The next layer up we're looking at is what we have initially called the Foothills Trail. So that's the first layer. So if you, like, the flat one is easy grade, the Foothills would be beginner easy, a slightly step up. It's not quite intermediate, but starting to a bit more challenge. And then the next step up is what we're calling backcountry. For true trampers, it's front country, but that is really connecting up through the bush. So those are out, and then extending up the Waikanae River Trail to Reikorangi and Mangakotukutuku and Tutihoru, and then north. So it is really, that plan is already in the AMP. I haven't got it in my presentation today, I'm sorry, but I'd be more than happy to. In terms of building that into projects and priorities, that is definitely in front of the trustees now, and we have some work underway on that, building those, building this in sections. This is something that will work even incomplete. So it's pieces of a puzzle, but it doesn't require the whole thing to be fully finished before you start to see benefits. Where we have a lot of trails already, and this project really is about connecting them up. So each connection we add is going to make more loops more viable. It will just get better and better effectively. But what we're doing is looking at building them into discrete projects, and then we'll prioritise them. Like, some will be ready to go, some will have natural barriers, some will have things, funding gaps. They all have funding gaps at the moment. But we will start to work through, what is the low-hanging fruit and what is difficult and what we need to build into other people's plans, like Regional Council and Department of Conservation and other people like that as well. So it's something that I think that we could report back on in about 3 months once we have a priority list. And then the last section of that, working with council, and in terms of subdivisions, absolutely. So hopefully this will work better as a synergistic approach. Everything will work better together, right? So if we keep talking and we keep sort of a mutual alliance, and that we're all in it together, there's definitely things that will, connections that can only really be opened up by subdivision, or by a few landowners gifting land. But there is so much public land around us that that's the initial priority of the trust. Yeah.
Thank you very much for gathering up your thoughts and providing me with all those answers to the questions that I provided to you. Thank you. So I'll now move on to Councillor Halliday.
First thing I just wanted to comment on is absolutely love seeing your passion coming through in this, Janice. You're obviously really excited about, which is fantastic, and we're really lucky to have you as part of this project moving forward with your understanding how council works, but also, just what you bring to that equation. My question was a relatively simple one. I've talked to a couple of people that have owned land up that way. They're saying, well, look, how do we engage as such? So who would, is there a process for us, if we're coming across people that are perhaps interested in being engaged, to pass their details on or link you up?
Oh, by all means, please, yes. More is more at the moment. As I said, the Trust is starting to work through priorities. We're very new. We're still coming together in that
I understand that, yep.
storming, forming kind of thing, which is all good, as you'd expect in a proper organisation. However, comms is very much part of our initial work, and that is to get a website and digital presence, and even something simple up quickly so that people can see what the plans are and then hopefully feed into that as part of this project. And if I can move on to I've done a huge amount of community engagement on this. A massive amount of support has sort of is not, to say,
it's just good stuff.
It's coming out of the woodwork, but that's kind of but yeah, there's huge support, and it was very, very easy to get letters of support for this project. So yeah, so work in progress for us to present proper comms to the community, but there is a lot of engagement, and all of us would love to have a coffee with a landowner that wanted to work with us.
No, that's great. And look, I look forward to the 3 months, appreciating that this is a coming together of. as such, because it'd be great to see what the connection to the beaches is going to be like, but I appreciate that's all going to come.
Yeah.
But it's fantastic that this is in place and it's heading in the direction it's heading into.
Cool. Thank you.
So I'll pass on now to Councillor Coford and Trustee.
Well, thanks, Madam Chair, and thanks, Janice, for that very eloquent introduction, and Kat and Bruce, welcome. The Pathways Trust dovetails really well into what we know as our spatial plan. We've been talking about at our workshops with our connections to the mountains to the sea. It looks at adjoining areas, not just the Kapiti Coast, and Janice will elaborate on that very shortly. And also, as Janice said, local areas, looking at the Old Taki Gorge, of course, getting that reopened and revitalised, and just generally reinforcing the walkways in the area and the network of them and getting the community involved. Thanks.
Thank you, Rob. So now move on to Christian. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks very much for such an enthusiastic, well-informed presentation. I'm from the Paikākāriki Community Board, so you're always welcome to come and talk to us.
Kia ora.
And my questions are with regard to Paikākāriki as the heart of the trail network in the district, clearly as the best place to be. So are you aware of the Wainui Whenua project?
Yes.
Okay, and you're talking to them,
Yes.
and Hamish is doing the business case
Yes.
work. Okay, that was it. Come and see us.
Absolutely. Very happy to.
So, Mr. Olsen, so this will be the last question here because there's still the presentation to give. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. No, really exciting project. I love it. I mean, I spend a lot of time walking on these tracks, and to see these ones we've always say when walking, wouldn't it be great to be able to link them up and that. So from that side, fantastic. Couple of questions. Is the trust also looking at taking on some of the existing tracks, or is it just new tracks? So I know some of these can be maintenance issues with some of the existing tracks. And on that one as well, maybe not so much for you, but you may know the answer. Do we know the status? There's been, recently or the last few years, some challenges with access on Campbell's Mill Road. And I did hear that a couple of years ago there was very close between council and the landowner that have issues getting to an agreement, but then staff changed and nothing really seemed to go on from there. So I'm just wondering if there's any
I think
update
that's
on
probably out of scope of this presentation today, but I know that's that is an issue.
that. Oh, it's on the map. It's on the map of the picture here.
If I can answer the first part of that for you, and that is the trust is not looking to take over any, currently not looking to take over any council trails. However, there may be some other trails that might fall into that category that are not being looked after. Yeah. And won't be in future. Yeah. That are critical to the access that we're proposing. Yeah. And yes, Campbell Mill is being worked on. I can just say that for you, on Kat's behalf. But also critical.
Being worked on through CWB?
Oh, okay.
If it's possible, I think this presentation will answer a lot of questions.
Yes, so if we can pass on to that, Kat, or whoever's going to, Janice is going to be given the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, so this trail is one of the ones that we initially, it was actually highlighted in the open spaces strategy. It is in the AMP. It was originally prioritised further down. However, there is an opportunity. So the background to this trail is from the Transmission Gully project. Transmission Gully severed a number of recreation connections, particularly south of the Kapiti Coast around the Battle Hill Porirua area. Many people submitted to the Board of Inquiry in 2012, we're going back a bit here, that a recreation trail needed to be included, and that was written into the LUDMP, which is the Landscape and Urban Design Management Plan for Transmission Gully. It's not been delivered, It is an outstanding project. In their words, it is a small but complicated project and has always been well down the list of priorities because it was added in very late to the project da-di-da. There is still a willingness by the project to do something around that, and they being NZTA and the builders CPB HEB did design a track called the Gas Line Track. So from a Wainui Whenua perspective, it was going to run up Old Perkins Farm Ridgeline and then drop down into pretty much just south of the saddle, the Wainui Saddle, and then run right along State Highway 1 on a combination of old logging roads and new tramping track and come out at Flighties Road. Unsurprisingly, not many people thought that a recreation trail running next to State Highway 1 in a gully would be a good idea. So a number of people have approached all of the councils independently and expressed their dissatisfaction with the Gasline Track route. I approached NZTA in my role here at council, and they said that they were open to receiving an alternative proposal. This is that alternative proposal. So if I could run you through this, I'm sure you'll have many questions, but it also hopefully will answer what that is. So, but just before I go on, this is a working title. Paekakariki to Pauatahanui is rather descriptive and boring. It's also a lot for me to type out 30 times a day, so I've shortened it to P2P, which is all very functional. We are working with Ngāti Toa and do hope that in the future they may gift a more appropriate name, more evocative name. And also that while I do get very enthusiastic, this is still a proposal. So, however, it has had a lot of work go into it to determine its viability, costs, timelines, timeframes, etc. And a draft has been presented to NZTA, and they are now starting to work with and willing to work with the newly formed trust in order to be able to take that forward. So without further ado, if we could flip over to what it looks like, please. Oh yeah, the clicker, cool. Right, so I'm assuming you're all largely familiar, particularly from a Paekakariki perspective, you've been cut off, which is terrible. So it's a travesty. So I'll have to describe the Paekakariki end for you, but effectively running from Paekakariki town, which is of course the centre of the universe, then up through existing trails through Queen Elizabeth Park to Whariroa Farm, up Whariroa Farm, along Campbell Mill Road, that's why it's critical, and then a new trail around the northwest face of Mount Wainui to reach an existing ridgeline track that you can't see from the motorway, create a new downhill track into Battle Hill Farm Park, and then a new trail along the side of Paekakariki Hill Road to reach Pauatahanui, and then just beyond Pauatahanui will need to be some new car parking, and the potential site for that is Lanes Flat, which is just south of the old Pauatahanui roundabout, if you can visualise that. Because we've cut off Paekakariki, I'm not going to spend long on here because that's terrible. It is the green on that map is an existing trail called Te Arapiko, which runs around the Pauatahanui Inlet, and then Campbell Walkway, which connects to Mana train station. So between Paekakariki and Mana, this trail is connected into a loop via train. And while it may take you all day to cycle our proposed P2P trail, it takes 8 minutes on TG, so it's extremely well connected by road and rail. So yes, let's move on to the next slide, please. Oh, if you can do that, great. So, in essence, we have it says 35. It's actually a 38-kilometre trail from going through Pauatahanui to the car park. which we think will be the trailhead. There'll also be a trailhead at Paekakariki end, and there's a number of options in Paekakariki. The key part and the difference of this proposal to the Gasline proposal is that this trail will go around Mount Wainui. Now, there is a tramping track currently over the top of Mount Wainui. However, it's steeper than the Kapiti Coast side is steeper than Kapakapanui track. There are some steps that even my reasonably long legs cannot reach. It is incredibly steep. The other side isn't so bad. Not surprisingly, it's not very well frequented, which is a shame because it's one of the most beautiful places in the district. You really do feel like you're on an island. So the proposed trail is a showcase of all our different landscapes. We have wetlands, coastal dunes, hilltop ridges. It's subalpine at 722 metres high, streams, valleys. It's an incredible expose of our landscape types. It also connects mountain bike parks. It connects 4 regional parks. And it connects Kapiti Coast Porirua like there is never before. In fact, I'm going to push the boat out and say this is a once in a lifetime opportunity to connect our network to the Porirua network of trails off-road. The only real other alternative I can see is always going to be shared with motorised because of the Akaterra forest. There's just too much private land and it's just too difficult round the coast any other way. Of course, once you reach Porirua, you're then connected into Wellington, the Hutt Valley, therefore the Wairarapa, and of course Porirua and round the western side. So this is a massive opportunity to connect us. It won't be for the faint-hearted. However, there's not a single step on the entire trail. It's a total around 1,000 metres of elevation. The high point of the trail is at 560, and those of you that look up at Mount Wainui frequently, as I do now, will see it often has its head in the clouds. You will, probably does today. 722 is subalpine, even though it's not actually that high. The way it is on the southern end of the Tararua Range and the way it hits the southerly, in fact it protects us here, it is pretty substantial. There's a maximum grade of 7% on this trail, which puts it firmly into the intermediate category, meaning it will be very accessible for most people of average skills and ability. It'll be purpose-built trail, mountain bike grade 3, pedestrian would be an easier tramp, and almost all sections, apart from the Mount Wainui section, will be accessible by horses as well. 100% off-road, 100% separated from motorised users. And those of you that know that the Akaterra forest is also shared with motorised users, there's no existing motorised use on the northwestern side of Mount Wainui. So we're not removing any existing use, and there won't be any new use for motorised users. And that's a really important part for our ambitions for this trail. It's about 99.8% public land. There's literally a tiny amount of private land. I think about 40 metres on the entire trail. And those people are very happy to provide an easement. From bang for buck perspective, half of it's already existing trails. So out of 38 kilometres, we actually need to build 19 kilometres. There's some upgrading of existing ones to get it into that category of trail. Plus, car parks, toilets, signage and other amenities. She says very swiftly. There is a lot of work to do. The Mount Wainui forest is virtually silent. I spent 2 days crawling around up there and I counted 7 individual birds. A very eminent ornithologist spent a weekend up there and he didn't count many more. It's phenomenally predated. And while it is in our district plan as a key native ecosystem, it is not being protected. Currently it receives a 1080 drop about every 10 years. It has possums, it has goats, pigs, stoats, weasels and ferrets. Not to mention rats and mice. There's not, the poor little birds don't have a chance, and I really mean that. So it looks out at Carpi Island, like it's so sad that it is. The bush is beautiful, but there's no birds. So traps is a really, really important part. The reason why it's not being looked after is it's inaccessible. It's really, really hard to get to at the moment. The trail will provide, around that section, will provide 6 kilometres of trail. And part of our proposal is that we put traps on that, a lot of them. And one of the community support groups that are supporting this has offered to put in AI traps. They're the ones that sense with a camera what animal is in front of it and releases the exact lure for that animal, and then once it's dispatched that animal, it then reloads. So that's the type of protection that this trail could enable, and that's been volunteered as a community service. Not to mention control of ungulates, so that's hunting the pigs and goats and whatnot. Compared to the rest of the Akateroa forest, which if any of you have been up there in winter, it's incredibly cold. It's in the lee of Mount Wainui, therefore it's in its shadow and it's very cold. This has a sunny west-facing aspect. I was crawling up around there in July and it was amazingly sunny. You've got that beautiful west-facing aspect. You're looking out over Kapiti Island and Mana Island, D'Urville Island, Farewell Spit, Wellington Harbour, Porirua Harbour, Ruapehu, Taranaki, Mount Hector, Kapakapanui. It's just the Orongorongo Valley. You can just about see the Lake Wairarapa. It's pretty phenomenal view. Okay, so next slide, please. That's the view looking south from the summit to Porirua Harbour, subalpine bush. It's very special, and this is an accessible route with not one step to get up there. Yes, it will be suitable for e-bikes. It is, I call this the Roy's Peak of Wellington. Roy's Peak is New Zealand's #1 Instagram photo that goes around the world. This is actually 360. Unfortunately, I didn't take a video, and that was taken in July. Can only imagine how that's going to be, and I'll tell you when I do that on my summer holidays. Is walk, it's phenomenal. You're looking right down beyond the Kaikoras. You really do appreciate the incredible place that we have. Okay, so as if these are not self-evident, we think this trail has a lot of benefits. Obviously, it's a long trail opportunity, so it's a day, 38 kilometres. There aren't many trails in the Wellington region, if any, of that length. The Rimataka Incline even is not as long, and that is important because that creates an outing. That's a real destination, not something that you just go and do for a couple of hours. This is something you will travel for to do. It's all 3 modes: pedestrian, mountain bike and horse. Mountain bike includes e-mountain bike. It really will enhance the reputation, not just of, and I've said Wellington, I really mean the Wellington region. This is a regional trail. It will definitely have regional significance. The scenery is absolutely stunning. Will be something that we will want to take our visitors to and tell people about. I started working on estimated visitor numbers, then met with Jonathan Kennett, and he told me I was way too conservative. He is, if you like, Mr. Great Rides, and he has done a huge amount of work on the visitation to the Great Rides and the counting and things like that. And he thinks it will be around 60 to 75,000 users a year, which is more than double the current escarpment track usage. It's likely that will be about half walkers and half bikers, and plus horse riders. I don't know the numbers for horse riders. Nobody really counts, but that would be an addition as well. There's huge opportunity for biodiversity enhancement simply from that pest animal management. If we can remove the pests from browsing and killing the birds, browsing the bush and killing the birds, it will bounce back. Nature is amazing. It will definitely bounce back. There's a lot of old growth. Unfortunately, it's not virgin. It was selectively harvested for rimu back in the day. But I have seen saplings of rimu. So once again, it will take the problems away and nature will fix itself. There are huge opportunities for cultural and historic storytelling. The story of Te Rangi Haiata's escape from the imperial forces in 1846 in August over virtually this route is one of the, I think, most untold stories of, it's also the last significant, it's the last land of the land wars in the Lower North Island. This could be a fantastic storytelling opportunity. The Transmission Gully has been named Te Aro Te Rangi Haiata, but the whole story hasn't really been told, and there is huge opportunities for guided tours, interpretation, along with the bush, and frankly, that's Ngāti Toa's Rohi that it looks out on. It's a really significant area. We had the Marines stationed in Paekakariki in World War II who actually did a lot of their jungle training up on Mount Mainui. So trail builders, beware. There are improved safety, obviously, with that new track next to Paekakariki Hill Road, where there is no way to walk. Kids are getting driven to school less than 1 kilometre because it's not safe to walk on the road. And if you've ever tried to park at Paoataunui lately, you'll understand why they need more car parking. They actually bus people in for events at the school because there's nowhere to park. It's not just about constructing a trail, you have to maintain it. This trail will be largely based on rock, which is one of the best trail, as the Romans proved, this is one of the best trail building surfaces possible, and there are no major bridges. From a visual perspective, this is all under the canopy on Mount Mainui. You won't see it from down here. And the slide I started with is that you will get view shafts, natural view shafts through the bush. It forms that beautiful window until you reach the ridgeline when you get those views. Actually, I think the next slide has one of those views I'm talking. Yes. That's that ridgeline track. So that's just south of Mount Mainui looking north, clearly. And that dark, that is the bush of Mount Mainui. That's at about 560 metres high, which is largely the high point of the track. So that's that existing ridge. And down in the gully is, on the left, just in front of Kapiti Island is Old Perkins Farm. So you're looking down on it. So if I can just go back, I know we're running short of time. From a regional network, I said this is an opportunity to connect. So you have the Kapiti Coast Trail Network. This is from Trail Forks, by the way. And you have, things through the Akatera Forest. Akatera Forest is really in the realm of the expert user. It's not signposted, it's shared with motorised. Yes, it is great, but it's not accessible for average people, and therefore it's not a tourism product. And then you've got Porirua, which of course connects in with Wellington, which is going to get even better once Te Ara Tupuna along the Hutt motorway. Once that trail opens, this will literally connect through Belmont Regional Park through there. So you can see the gap that I'm talking about. There is no connection currently, so this will connect. So if we can skip forward, please. So our ambitions is for the trail to attract our community and trail-based visitors, to become part of the Great Rides Network, to be recognised as a regional signature trail along the lines of the escarpment and the Rimataka Cycle Trail, etc., to bring back the native birds to the forest. The trail will almost form like a barrier between the incredible work that's being done down on the coast and the Akatera Forest, which is controlled by 1080. Collectively, that will improve the health and well-being of Wellington region, not just the Kapiti Coast, because of the additional benefits of a really exciting trail, and that it will become potentially part of the longer ride, meaning the work that the Trails Trust has to not just connect to Paekakariki, but for, I did say Paekakariki centre of the universe, but from Paekakariki north through the foothills and the backcountry all the way up to north of Otaki. So potentially a multi-day ride or walk. And so where we are now, we have verbal. We need to move to now formal landowner permissions. We're in that process now. The next step is to develop MOUs and then those to become formal agreements. We are working with NZTA to secure the funding that they were going to apply to the gas line track and apply that instead. So say, don't build that, but help us build this. That's now time critical because the Transmission Gully project is winding up. Now that we have the Trails Trust established, we can start to, as a Trails Trust, express our interest in taking over the governance of this track, the P2P trail. And then once those things are in place, it would be the trust that applies for the consents, and then building the project, developing the implementation. Timing wise, we could be starting construction in 18 months and we could be walking or riding it within 3 years. And that is my presentation. I'm very happy to take questions, although I see we're very short of time.
Wow, that is absolutely fantastic, amazing. Bring on 3 years. So I'll pass over to Councillor Coe.
Yeah, look, I have lots to say about this. Well done on getting to this point. I know it's been such a struggle for you to get there. So yeah, great work. I'm thinking it's a good time to invest in cafes in Paikok by the sound of it.
Yep.
Might need a few more.
Yeah.
Look, it was good to see the focus on well-being. So myself and another couple of ladies have set up the Kapiti Wellbeing Collective. We have a website, kapitiwellbeing.nz. And one of the things we're talking about is in January 2026, running a big wellbeing event in Kapiti, still in the very early stages of conception. But we had looked at using some of the Trails networks as part of that event, in the sense of having competitions and challenges and that kind of thing. So I'm just, and as part of that, we thought of having like QR codes or something on Trails, where people could log in and say, yeah, I've been there, done that, and having Instagrammable locations that are clearly marked as they do in some other countries, So I'm just wondering whether that's part of your thinking, because, if we are truly going to do this as a tourism thing, it would be good to have those kind of more touristy. I know it's sort of to the Tremper, it's like probably heresy.
No, no. So events are very much part of our thinking on this trail. This trail lends itself extremely well to events. A number of events are very interested in taking this trail. I think I've got 3 or 4 letters of support from event organisers. They need that longer trail, they need the iconic trail, they need the views that will actually sell internationally to attract international visitors, like Benji's, what's it called? Yes, but what's the Fault Line Challenge. So they would use this trail as part of it to get to that Instagrammable moment. And that is actually how trails like Roy's Peak. Roy's Peak is 85,000 visitors a year. I thought it would be more. So, but it's very hard to get to. It's extremely hard to. This is incredibly easy to get to. This is within 1 hour of downtown Wellington by public transport. This is incredibly easy to get to. That's why the visitor numbers are so, is going to be so big. So events are all sorts: walking, tramping, running, mountain biking, are interested in using this. Multi-sport events are interested in using it, and I totally agree. Wellbeing events, the summit view is almost a spiritual experience. It's very hard to describe how you feel up there.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. So, and I presume you can use like QR code, something to do the storytelling.
Totally.
So you can.
Interpretation is a really, really big thing, and I'm looking at a number of like modern ways to do interp.
Yeah. Look, the other thing that also I want to ask about was we have the Housing Trust and we're setting up an Economic Development Trust with Council. Both of those have relationship agreements with Council. And I'm really thinking that there's an opportunity here also to have a relationship agreement with the Trails Trust. Or is it Pathways Trust? What's your actual name?
Trails Trust.
Trails Trust, right. So I would really encourage you to start some dialogue around that, because to me this is going to work best if there's some sort of partnership between the Trust and Council. And I think to clearly set out, who's going to do what and how things are going to work. And we do have some model documents with the Housing Trust and the ED Trust that would be a template for that.
Cool.
So it'd just be a matter of adapting that, and I'm sure Brendan or I don't know someone could get their hands on that for you if you wanted to see what's being proposed now for those two to start working on that. So I think the sooner you could do that, the better, probably.
As I said, we are moving to that formal agreement with landowners. KCDC does have a small part of this trail, and yes, so most of it's on Greater Wellington land, but some of it's on DOC, so we will need.
But just in terms of developing like the tourism side of it, and
access is the big thing so the Trails Trust really does need a proper agreement with Council. So going back off this trail back into Trails Trust. It's something that we've said from the outset that we would like to seek in maybe that is the template, that relationship agreement.
And maybe you need one with Greater Wellington as well, or whoever else. Just have those agreements in place so that you're not out there isolated on your own.
Oh no! This is a big partnership.
It'd be good to kind of have something in writing that sets out how things will be going forward.
Yep.
Yeah.
All work to do.
Yes, I know you've got a big job ahead of you, but well done, and keep up the good work. Yeah, it's going to be really exciting. Yeah, well done.
Thank you, Councillor Coe. Now we move on to Councillor Warwick.
Well, I'd just like to thank Janice for all of her work, and to say I've been on the CWB advisory group for 9 years now, I think. There's an incredible amount of work that goes on. Bruce does a heap of work, but when Janice was involved with us, it really switched things up. She has the most amazing enthusiasm and the most amazing vision, which has really kind of inspired a lot of stuff that's going on now. So thank you. Also for your support of the equestrian world, both within Kapiti and outside of Kapiti, supporting us with other projects that are going on around New Zealand. But I'm just interested in what is it specifically that we as a council can do in this early stage to be most effectively supportive of the Trails Trust in setting it up.
Thanks, Shelley. I think it's a great question. So I think where Liz is saying that we need to start developing that, I was thinking memorandum of understanding or something like, but if there's already templates in place, that's one side for the trust, because the trust is still setting out what it's going to do. So it's going to need, that will start to work out what it is that it needs. For this trail specifically, and I mentioned it, preface this by saying this isn't probably where we would have started. You normally start with low-hanging fruit and you get runs on the board first. This is a really big project to start with. However, it's an opportunity that we can't look at. What would be very helpful today would be if the council would formally give its support to the Pāotahenui to Paikokariki P2P trail. And the reason I think that would be helpful is because We are dealing with Greater Wellington and Porirua City Council as well, and NZTA, and they do keep saying, what does Kāwari think about this? So it would be really helpful if this forum felt that this was something worthy that they wanted to support, notwithstanding there will be a resource consent application in future, but that it did support the concept. We are asking, the Trust is asking NZTA to put a project aside and fund this one instead. So for them to hear that the council actually want it and don't want the other one, it would be very helpful.
And what about other resources like, obviously, volunteers sitting here? So what other kind of resource could help? Obviously, we've got trusts being set up, and I'm not sure how you're funding your... I know that money's tight and it's not budgeted in a long-term plan. However, it was supported. The Trails Trust was supported in the long-term plan. So what... I don't know how you're funding what you're doing with regard to legally setting up the entity and stuff, but what kind
We
of
have
things?
been relying, yes, you are right. We have been relying on pro bono and volunteer. We are relying on pro bono and volunteer labour. At this point, establishment is always difficult, but we know that money is super tight. So we are not here today to ask for money. We're actually asking for support.
Yeah. Cool. And thank you, Janice. You're amazing.
Thanks.
And Bruce.
Councillor Halliday.
Very quick. Most of my questions have been covered off. Supporting a view on Gareth and his team, actually. They're absolutely fantastic. Been a breath of fresh air in dealing with that sort of stuff. My question is, 34 kilometres scares the bejeebers out of me with regards to getting from one end to the other. And that's what I'd love to get up there. Is there going to be connections where you can sort of do 4-hour sort of, up and down sort of snow, walk along a bit and come back
Totally.
down?
Yep. No one will be forcing you to walk the whole thing. You can cut it short in a number of ways. It doesn't connect in the middle to, there is a through part in the middle. A lot of potential users say to me that they will probably come up one side and to the summit and back. I think the fact that it can be used in a whole bunch of different ways is actually part of the appeal as well. You're not sort of disappearing into the bush at one end and popping out the other. You're actually, you have choices and options and loops, and that's actually going to be really
great.
critical. Yeah.
And look, it's not my place to say how this committee conducts itself, but I'll be suggesting a recommendation from this committee or endorsement from this committee, but pushing this up to strategy, not so you've got a full council support. I can't see any reason why there wouldn't be support. There shouldn't be any reason why that couldn't happen I would hope, quite quickly as well, that sort of stuff. But I hear what you're saying. Obviously, we're on board with this. We've helped set the trust and everything up. To me, it's more of a formality, but it's important that you have that visibility.
Yeah.
So I'd like to emphasise that we need to sort that out sooner rather than later.
Thanks, Martin.
Okay, so absolutely fantastic progress that has been made on this trust, and fantastic concept in what you've presented today, your passion. I can see why it has got to where it has just because of your passion. And I suppose the support that that the other people around you, such as Bruce and members of the CWB, have actually played in this. And I suppose previously I've been on the CWB as well, and I suppose even though there's been this really strong desire to get these tracks and trails out there, the funding has been the limiting factor, and so this is a way to actually resolve this. And having such a concept as this as a first up is absolutely amazing. And so I wish you all the best, the very, very best. We have 3 recommendations here, and I've actually just sent another set of words forward to be considered by this committee, which it'll be something along the lines of that that CES supports the P2P concept as presented by the Kapiti Trails Trust today. Is that
Yep, that would be great.
okay?
Thank you.
So
me,
we'll just
excuse
get
me, Madam
those
Chair.
words up first.
Excuse me, could I ask whether you're looking at pushing this up to a committee above this for their support or confirmation at all?
Yes, I think actually we probably need to recommend this going to
Either full council or soft, but
the account. Yes, so this committee, yes, slight variation here.
for that
this
further endorsement.
committee-
Do we need a formal letter of support to go to somebody?
A formal letter of support just for the trail itself would be super helpful.
Yeah, maybe we need to read that in there as well.
Yep, two things. That's about this going to council and this letter providing a letter of support.
Great, thank you.
That we ask council to agree to provide a letter of support.
How soon do you need the letter of support?
Within a couple of weeks, actually. This is because, and this has actually happened very quickly. That TG is winding up by the end of the year, so if we do have an opportunity to secure funding from them, it is not at all guaranteed. So sooner would be better.
Okay,
Just maybe that we ask the CE and Mayor to provide a letter of support, because then it doesn't have to go to the whole council. It can be the CE and Mayor, and
yeah, well hopefully they will agree to this.
Well, we just need to put in there a request that this committee makes a request of the CEO and Mayor to provide a letter of support.
to transfer the P2P.
Yeah.
Yep.
It can be brought forward. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is Sophie online? Is she still online?
She's not.
Okay. When's the Jen go out?
Tomorrow, yep.
Actually, we'll just have a couple of minutes offline if that's okay.